Today, I will be presenting the decline of the Mayan civilization. How could it be that one of the greatest civilizations of history, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, suddenly collapsed and ceased to exist? The Mayans were an ancient people who lived in what is now current-day Mexico and Guatemala, specifically in the Yucatan Peninsula. They formed an advanced civilization from as far back as 1800 before Common Era and lasted until 900 Common Era. They had their own polytheistic religion, calendar, and they built pyramids and over 40 cities. At its peak, the population of all the cities reached 10 million inhabitants. However, by 900 Common Era, the Mayan civilization had been suddenly abandoned. Four major arguments for why this happened are the warfare argument, the drought argument, the overpopulation and environmental disaster argument, and the hierarchical disruption argument. After comparing all the theories, the most persuasive reason for why the Mayan civilization declined and the people abandoned the cities is overpopulation and environmental disaster, because the deforestation and drought led to the collapse of vital resources needed to maintain the population. The first reason why the overpopulation and environmental disaster led to the decline of the Mayan civilization is that the Yucatan Peninsula was not a fertile land. The land was difficult to cultivate because the land consisted of, quote, a thin layer of soil over a limestone base, unquote. This greatly compromised the potential of the soil to provide sustained crop yields. In order to make use of this type of soil, farmers in the Yucatan still use milpas, or cleared plots of land, to grow crops like beans and corn. After a couple of years, this practice leaves the soil depleted, so another patch of forest needs to be cut down and cleared so a new milpa can be created. The old milpa now requires decades of recovery time, so the nutrients in the soil can return to normal levels and the trees can grow once again. As a result, the Yucatan Peninsula never was suited to provide sustained crop yields for a civilization of such magnitude, so the agricultural aspect of the Mayan civilization was doomed to fail from the start. Slash and burn agriculture. The second reason why overpopulation and environmental disaster led to the decline of the Mayan civilization is the agricultural approach of the Mayan farmers. The technique the Mayans used to clear more land for agriculture is called the slash and burn technique. The demand for new plots of land was high for two reasons. First, since these milpas were only useful for up to 2 years, the Mayan farmers always had to plan ahead to find new land to grow the crops in. Second, at the time of the Mayan collapse, the population escalated to more than 10 million inhabitants. This peak in population likely resulted in a greater demand for food. The result was an increase in the use of slash and burn. This was the only way that farmers could maintain the food production for the population. Simply, at some point, the Mayan farmers ran out of forest to cut down and land to use. The deforestation caused droughts to become more frequent. Less trees led to less water evaporation from the soil. This resulted in less rainfall, thus prolonging the droughts. Also, trees helped keep the soil in place and prevented erosion. The drought and the erosion together dried up the land at an accelerated rate. Overpopulation. The third reason why overpopulation and environmental disaster led to the decline of the Mayan civilization is because of the Mayans' inability to maintain their large population. The pressures that the growing Mayan population placed on the agricultural construct of the civilization were too great to endure long term. The soil limited the farmers from trying newer techniques, so they stayed with the slash and burn techniques in order to feed the population. Basically, the farmers had to, quote, ride the wheels off of the land and hope that the environment could hold on to the population till the population stabilized. The overpopulation not only affected the food supply, but also the water supply. The increased frequency of droughts not only prevented steady crop output, but made drinkable water a scarcity as well. The overpopulated Mayans, by 900 Common Era, realized that there were not enough resources for everyone. The lack of reliable resources could have resulted in unrest and revolts over control of the food supply. Question: how can overpopulation result in more frequent and prolonged droughts? The reason overpopulation resulted in more frequent, prolonged droughts was that the population placed greater demand for food on the farmers. To keep up with this heightened demand, farmers were forced to cut down more forest to create new milpas. Less forest meant less water evaporation from the soil, so the amount of rainfall decreased, causing more frequent droughts. Conclusion. In conclusion, the most persuasive reason for why the Mayan civilization declined and the people abandoned the cities is overpopulation and environmental disaster, because deforestation and drought led to the collapse of vital resources needed to maintain the population. Many factors likely played a role in the Mayan collapse, and this reason covers the major factors and how they affected one another. The factors started to pile one on top of the other to the point that irreversible damage was done to the environment and to Mayan society. The Mayans were left with a tough decision: to either stay in the cities and starve or to flee the city. Both resulted in the complete collapse of the Mayan civilization by the year 900 Common Era, and the civilization itself never recovered. The relationship between the factors is a multiple causation relationship. Overpopulation led to more slash and burn techniques to be used. The reason slash and burn was used in the first place was due to poor soil, which is something the Mayans had no control over. So the poor soil resulted in the initial use of slash and burn. Once the population had increased to an unsustainable level, slash and burn techniques caused the deforestation to drastically increase, which then increased the frequency of the droughts due to less water evaporation from the soil. It is these environmental factors with the droughts that caused the inevitable collapse of the Mayan civilization.